Welcome, Dr. Tekle, again.
Thank you, Gustavo. Good morning, everybody. Hope that all is well. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a background about myself, I have been in the industry in the importing and exporting, and in particular also in international trade in general for the last 25 years or more. Both teaching, working for different organizations, and helping companies, including a company that you might be familiar called Alibaba.com. Now I volunteer for SCORE, and I teach also, I'm teaching also part-time some business courses. Now, as far as this webinar is concerned, this webinar is more or less like an introduction to give you the basic understanding of importing and exporting. As you might be aware, importing and exporting part of international trade is very huge area. So 1 hour is not going to do much, but what I would like to do is to introduce you to some of the terminologies, some of the concepts, and some areas maybe that can help you when you start your business in importing and exporting. I just also want to say that this is for educational purposes. As a disclaimer, this is not meant to be giving you an advice on customs or other government agencies that we might talk about. So take it for what it is, more or less like an educational and informational session rather than legal or financial advice. Now, let's start with the first slide and what we will be covering during this time. We're going to talk about the most common questions asked by exporters and importers. These questions have been asked to me also by exporters and importers. So we're going to pick up some of the key areas that I have been asked quite often. We're going to talk briefly about the process of importing and exporting as to what importing starts and where it ends. And we're going to cover the roles or the information that you can get from the Department of Commerce if it's for exporting, and from US Customs also if it is for importing. I'll suggest some countries and also maybe possibly some products, or at least I'll give you some resources where to find them. And I will touch bases on those as well. And also, I think the most important part in importing and exporting is a payment, right? How you will pay your seller or how you get paid if you are the buyer. And then at the end, I will provide some resources. So let's jump into the specifics. These are some of the basic questions I have been asked several times by new importers and exporters. One question is, do I need a company or a license to export and import? Well, the short answer for that is no. You don't need a license to export and import. I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. Meaning, for example, for a company, you don't have to have an entity like an LLC or S Corp or a corporation. You as an individual can export. What you need in terms of exporting is you need the EIN number, which is employee identification number, if you have that one. And if you don't have a EIN number, you can use what they call a DUNS number, Duns and Bradstreet, where you can get it for free, as far as the number is concerned, and it's a 9-digit number, then you can use that certainly to export a product. So there isn't any need for creating a company, a structured company. You as an individual can export. The same applies for importing also, but with some kind of a little bit twist on it. For importing, you're going to need, you can use your social security number if you have a social security number. If you have an EIN number, which is an employee identification number, you can use that one. Or if you don't have both, you can use what customs called it an importer's number. Customs will give you a number so that you can import that product, okay? So no need to be considered about a company or no need to be considered about the license aspect of it. Now, when it comes to license for exporting, there are very few products that require a license to export. These products can be chemicals or biologicals, whether it is for certain treatment in illness, arms and ammunitions. This is restricted, so you have to have some kind of a permit or a license from the government agency that regulates that. Or if you are selling like nuclear products, which I think most of the small companies is way above their ability to do that. So those are the areas. In fact, approximately 4% of the goods that are exported from the United States require a license. 96% of the products doesn't require a license. This means most of the small businesses and mid-sized businesses products that are sold, unless they are more specialized, you don't need a license to export. Now, when it comes to importing, that is a different story, meaning there's many products that would require not really a license, but it could be a permit or a certificate from the government agency that regulates that specific product. Let me give you an example. If you are going to import fruits and vegetables and related products, you are going to need a permit or a certificate from the Department of Agriculture before you import it, okay? Similarly, like milk and dairy products and plants and animals related products, definitely you have to obtain the permit or the license from the government agency that regulates that specific product. It could be the Food and Drug Administration, it could be the Department of Agriculture, or if you are trying to import cell phones, for example, you might have to get a permit or some kind of a certificate from the Federal Communication Commission, which is the FCC, and so forth. So in importing, there's more products that would require to obtain a license and or a permit or a certificate, but very few for importing. Now let's move on to the second item that I have in the slide. Can I import or export without outside assistance? Yes, you can import without outside assistance, but you have to know what you're doing. Meaning you have to have some idea as to what you are exporting, where you are exporting, and how to classify that product, and so forth. We'll talk about the two entities that can help you, one for exporting and the other one for importing, in a little bit more detail, so that you will know what they do and how they can help you. The last item that I have is how about countries? Where do I export or where do I import from? That's something that I can talk about. You might have in mind a country that you want to export or import, but there are other countries, of course, that you can consider. And we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail later on. So those are the key areas that we're going to cover. These are, again, basics. Those of you who might be familiar with the importing and exporting process, hopefully this will serve as a refresher to you. Okay, now let's talk about basic things first. The transaction process. Where does importing starts? Where does it end? Where does exporting starts and where does it end? Now, I'm going to give you an example of the transaction process for exporting. But if you flip it on the other side, this also applies to importing, okay? So we have now exporter, US exporter to a Mexican importer, right? If it was to be imported, the Mexican exporter, and then the US will be an importer. So you just have to turn it around to work for you. But the process is similar. And this is basically to give you an idea as to where exporting starts and where exporting ends, and where importing starts and also where importing ends. So the first step is negotiation. Okay, that's a very important aspect of the process. You negotiate about the price, you negotiate about the documents that you need, you negotiate about also what type of certificate or license you might require. All these things you talk with your importer or exporter, then you finish that process. Okay, so it's agreed. Then the next step is, in this case, the Mexican importer will pay or arrange for payment. In other words, he will pay for the goods in his bank, right, to pay for the exporter, or he make an arrangement with his bank if he have, like, say, for example, he have a credit with the bank that he can use. Okay, so that is the second step. The importer will go to his bank, pays for the goods, or arranges to pay for the goods. Okay, and remember, during the negotiation, the importer and exporter also agreed about the type of documents that they are going to need. Okay, and then the third step is the documents that the importer wants will be sent to the US bank, in this case, to the exporter's bank. Okay, so the documents, again, could be that the importer would need an invoice, the importer will need a certificate of origin, and so forth. And then the fourth step is the exporter is notified by his bank. What the bank will say to the exporter is, exporter, here are the documents that you have to comply with the importer that you agreed on step one during the negotiation. Okay, so basically, after the fourth step, after he is notified, the exporter will ship the goods. Okay, simple. He looks at the documents that he have to meet, the date that he have to ship, and so forth. And then, if everything is okay, then the goods will be shipped to the importer. Now, once the goods are shipped to the importer, if the goods were shipped through ocean, then he will have what they call a bill of lading. A bill of lading is a document that shows ownership of the goods. Okay, he will have a bill of lading through the shipping company will provide him, and he will get that, and also any other documents that the importer requested. He will fulfill that and takes it back to his bank. Once he ships the goods, he got the bill of lading, the proof of shipment. If it was through air, he will have what they call an airway bill. And then he will take those documents to his bank, which is step number 6, to get paid. In other words, once he submits all the documents that they agreed, then the bank will make the payment. This is a very kind of simple, kind of narrow process that I have. There's could be a lot of documents that can be involved as far as payment is concerned, how is it going to be paid, and so forth and so forth. So just to give you an overall or an overview of the process as to how the documents flow when you are shipping it through an ocean and an air. Now, as far as payment is concerned, if it is used using the credit card, let's say, for example, it's a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. The seller quotes the price. If the buyer agrees and pays through a credit card, and then it would send the money, and then the exporter is paid and ships the goods, similar to what we do domestically here as well. So this might sound a little bit more complicated for those of you who are not familiar with this process, but certainly it's something to have a good understanding, because that's the way it is going to go, whether we like it or not. All right, let's move on to the roles that the organizations or government agencies play when it comes to exporting and importing. And we'll start with the U.S. Department of Commerce. The U.S. Department of Commerce have an entity within the U.S. Department of Commerce. There are different government agencies. One of them is the International Trade Administration. The International Trade Administration is the export promotion arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce, meaning their role is to help U.S. exporters to sell products overseas. Why do they do that? Well, if you sell products overseas, then you are creating jobs here in the United States. Because they want you to create jobs, they try to make it easy for you to sell your products or services outside of the United States. Okay, and so they play a big role. They have an office here in Portland area where you can be able to contact them in person. But what I would suggest is, before you go and visit them, do your homework and be specific, so that they will be able to help you in a much better way. Okay, but definitely that's an agency that I would certainly consider to get some help. In addition to the Department of Commerce, also even the state of Oregon have Business Oregon, which have also a department for handling exporting. They will be able to assist you as well. So plenty of help when it comes to exporting. I wish I could say about importing that way. We will go to the importing side, but certainly there is a lot of assistance from the government point of view, because, as I said, they want to help you to export so that you can create jobs in the United States, because every product that you would sell, somebody is benefiting from it here. So that's something that we have to keep in mind as well. Now, what are some of the specific services they provide that they can help you? One is export counseling. This is a one-to-one counseling, similar to other organizations do. I belong to a SCORE, as I said before. We do a one-to-one counseling. And it can also be done virtually, specifically during COVID. We don't see each other with the clients most often. It's either Zoom or telephone or text and so forth. So they do a good job in terms of helping exporters. Now, what specific areas can they help? They can help you in documentation. What type of document you need for exporting? Specifically also on the compliance, how to comply with the government agencies. Those are something that most of us, we might not be familiar with, but definitely they could be very helpful in that area as well. Second area that they can help is market intelligence, conducting your research. Conducting your research, that means you have you got to do some kind of a research, right, as to what the price is, what the market is, how big the market is, who the competitors are, and so forth. And they would be able to help you on that as well. Now, one document or one resource that I think could be very valuable in all the things that I have mentioned in terms of market research is the country commercial guide, as you can see here in the second item of my slide. Country commercial guide is very detailed. It gives you how to do business in a specific country. Let's say if you want to do business in Canada, with Canada, or with Mexico, or with South Africa, name it, or with Germany, and so on. It has some good information about the country, the political and the economic systems, how to sell your product into that country, and so forth. So it's available for free. And definitely I would make use of it when you planning to conduct some kind of a research. Business matchmaking, they can also help you to meet someone in the specific country, like a gold key, where you will go up into that country and they set up a meeting for you to help you negotiate with a potential client in that country. And also international documentation that the country would need also would be included with that as well. In terms of the advocacy at the end is if you have any unfair practices or trade barriers, most often for a big company, but it can be also for small companies. In those areas also, they can advocate for you in making the process more easier. Now, so that's the Department of Commerce for exporting. In addition to the Department of Commerce, also there are agencies, private companies that can help you, the freight forwarders. Freight forwarders are agents that can help you move your goods easily into the country where you want to export. And they can help you as far as regulation is concerned, what is required, if you need a license or not. Most often, like I said, small companies might not need a license, but certainly it all depends on the specific product. And also filing through AES, Automated Export System. Automated Export System is where you file your documents to the government, what you are exporting and what the value of the exporting is, and so forth. You file this automated export system when the value of your goods exceed $2,500. Any amount less than that, you don't have to file unless the product requires some kind of a license, unless the product is a nuclear product or unless the product is a biological product, which could be very sophisticated for small companies. You don't have to file that EES. The carrier would provide you a document, whether it's DHL or UPS and so forth, that you have to file the form that they will provide you. Okay, and at the end is help exporters by providing importers need of documents. What your importer will need to clear his customs. You want to make it as easy as possible for the importer to clear his customs. So they would suggest that this is a type of document you have to submit it, you provide him or her so that they can clear goods easily. Ocean freight are licensed by the Federal Maritime Communication, and air freights are members of the International Air Transportation Association. So they are licensed to operate or at least have a certificate in some cases to become a freight forwarder. Okay, now just quickly, I want to talk about compliance. Compliance is very important. You have to comply with the government agency, specifically if your product, again, like I said, is one of those 4% products that would require a license. You want to just ask yourself a few questions. And Department of Commerce, the BIS, the Bureau of Industry and Security, would expect you to know this. What is my item? Means what type of product am I selling? Am I selling a commodity like furniture or exercise equipment and so forth, or even agricultural products? Or is your product a software? Retail packaged software where you can buy it from Walmart and sell it? Or is it a technical data? Technical data meaning blueprints and designs and so on. So you definitely want to identify what exactly is. And most likely your product might be the commodity section. Whether it's agricultural or furniture or shoes or whatever you will be selling. So that's one area. The other thing that they want you to know or expect you to know is, where is my item going? To what country is my product is going? There are certain countries that you cannot sell your product to those countries from the US. And that is because of the embargo, or what they call a sanction. You probably might have heard about it. Embargo or sanction is where the US government restricts certain products to go to certain countries. So if you are planning to export to North Korea, or your product ends in North Korea and Cuba or Iran, then definitely you want to think about it before you export. You have to get some kind of a license or a permit from the US government, even if it is not a nuclear product, to sell to this countries. Who will receive my product? This is definitely the ultimate end user who's going to use your product. Where you ship it might not be enough for the government, but who is going to use that specific product and for what they will use it is very important for the government. So you definitely want to know who the end user is going to be of that specific product. And finally, what you want to ask is what will they do with my product? Meaning, are they going to use it themselves or sell it to somebody else? Or is the product like a dual use product? Certain products you can use for one service and for another service, okay? So you definitely wanna know as to what will they do with the product when they get it. This is just to protect the exporter to know this, and by doing this, then the exporter is potentially complying with the government. Okay, now I'm going to shift from exporting to importing. Of course, exporting meaning shipping goods from the US, importing means bringing goods to the US. And as I said at the beginning, importing requires more documents, more careful process of the goods entering into the US and so forth. So I will talk briefly about what the role of Customs and Border Protection as far as importing is concerned. And we'll move on also as to what else help is available. US Customs regulates US inbound and outbound, meaning importing and exporting. They are located at 320 ports of entry, both inland, air, and sea. One other function of role of customs is to collect duty. Okay, when you import goods, you pay duty. In some cases, you might not pay duty because the government, the US government, have some kind of a privilege to those goods that might not require, they might not be dutiable. Okay, so that's one of their function, is to collect tariff and some fees like merchandise export processing fee and so forth. Within the U.S. Customs, there is a department called the Center of Excellence and Expertise. That is the one that you want to know more about who they are. The Center of Excellence and Expertise is within the U.S. There are 10 offices, and each office is designated for a specific industry. Textile industry, tech industry, and agriculture industry, and so on. So if you have a question regarding importing a product that is related to agriculture, then you contact the Center of Excellence and Expertise, and then they will move you or forward you to the specific department that handles it. So it's a good way to more or less know as to whether your product requires any kind of license or documentation, or have some kind of restriction, and so forth. So the Center of Excellence and Expertise certainly is a good way to start when you plan to import into the United States. That way, the goods don't have to be more or less held at the port of entry because you didn't have the right documents or you didn't follow the process. Now, in addition to US Customs, there's also what we call custom house brokers. Custom house brokers are agents, are licensed by customs to conduct transaction with customs. In other words, they are private companies, but they are licensed by customs to operate and function as more or less the middleman between customs and also the importer. They play a very important role as far as customs is concerned. They can help you on the second item on my slides. Oops, excuse me. They can help you in valuation, how much duty or how much taxes you're going to pay. They can help you in classification of your product. This is a little bit more complicated, but certainly something that you have to know, meaning classification is for every product that's imported into the United States have a code. You have to know that code. That's what they see, customs, when they clear goods. That code will tell them what exactly that product is. So customs brokers can help you, specifically if you are importing goods that have two type of components, a plastic and also a metal, right? Or a plastic and a textile. Those are two items. You might need to classify them separately, and it can be overwhelming for a new beginner to classify. Even for those experts, it sometimes is difficult. So certainly they could help you on that. And then also they can help you as to whether the product can be admitted into the US or not, okay? Now, certain products are not allowed to come into the US for whatever reason customs thinks. So they can help you in terms of meeting the government regulations, as far as importing is concerned. And then the last is marking, which is the country of origin labeling. All the tags that we see in our shirts and our blouse, made in such and such country, that is a customs requirement. And if it misses anything, then customs is not going to release it to the importer. So they play a big role in these four areas: valuation, classification, admissibility, and marking, which sometimes could be a little bit overwhelming for a new importer. And then in addition to that, some of them also conduct international documentations and packaging. They will help you, how you package and so forth. Some of them, not all of them. And also they can help you with obtaining a customs bond. A customs bond is like a deposit that you post with customs in case you didn't pay the right duty. Okay, in case you didn't pay the right taxes, then they will use that bond. They will use that bond to recover, whatever you didn't pay during the entry process. And custom house brokers can help you obtain that bond. And also, some of them do have a warehouse where they can store it until you move the goods from the warehouse instead of storing it at your home. They might have a special equipment if you might need a refrigerator and so on and so on. So that's also part of their services. Not all of them do that, but a lot of big companies, custom house brokers who have also freight forwarders have many, many other services in addition to the one that I have mentioned. Good. Okay. One thing that I want to also talk about compliance. I talked a little bit about exporting compliance. In importing compliance, one of the major things that you have to keep in mind is that customs wants you to have done your due diligence, that you have done your homework before you start to import. And they call that importer have to exercise a reasonable care. They expected you to know a little bit about the process of importing. Now, what happens if you don't exercise a reasonable care? One is the goods will be delayed at the port. And that's something that you don't want it to happen because you're going to pay the fees for storage and so on. Then they will also assess penalty, right? In addition to the delay, you add a penalty. And also if it is more or less items that they don't recognize or items that they don't approve, then they will refer it to the other agencies that handle enforcement. So definitely you have to do your diligence. You cannot tell customs that I didn't know, okay? That doesn't fly with customs, okay? You should have known. You can tell them that you have tried. You can tell them that you have went to your website. You can tell them that you asked the custom house brokers and so forth. You tell them that you read about this process and so on, but they expect you, because they expect you to know those. Those are something that they have to make a decision, but certainly I don't know. And what is this is not some of the things that they don't want to hear, at least from customs point of view. Okay. The benefit if you exercise a reasonable care is, your benefit is in future importing, you will be less scrutinized. In other words, they will check you less if you prove them that you did it right. So it is very important the first, the second, and third shipment that you do it right and prove them that you can do it right also in the future. Of course, that doesn't mean they will not going to inspect you, but most likely your shipment will be less, more or less checked or observed, okay? The benefits to customs, though, is because you are exercising a reasonable care, you are helping them in terms of their resources, right? So that they don't have to waste a lot of resources to help every importer, to file the forms and to answer questions that are not. That's not their job. Their job is to enforce the law of the US as far as import is concerned. Okay, now just quickly as to what your responsibilities are under the MODE Act, the Customs Modernization Act that I talked about, is you have to provide them accurate transaction documents, classification, like I said before, the code number of that product, duty assessment, how much duty you are going to pay, and marking, and also other government agency requirements. Let's say the Department of Agriculture or the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and so forth. So those are some of the responsibilities that an importer has. And that's why, as I said before, the role of customs brokers becomes very, very important, because this can be very overwhelming to a new importer. By hiring a customs broker, paying in the neighborhood between $200 to $300, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, you can save a lots of headache, and you will have a good relationship with customs and so forth, at least for the first, second, and third shipment. Then after that, you can make a decision as to whether you want to do it yourself or not. But certainly at the beginning, you want to make sure that you convince with customs, because if you don't, customs is going to follow you every time that you are importing goods into the US. Now, quickly, some of the documents that you would need. This applies also, some of them apply to importing and exporting, like bill of lading and airway bill. If you remember, I mentioned at the beginning, bill of lading is a document that the shipping company provides you that proves that you are the owner and they are agreeing with you to ship that product into a specific place. Airway bill is when you ship through FedEx or DHL or UPS, and that document that they file is called airway bill. Now, the difference between bill of lading and airway bill is not a binding kind of, it's not a legal ownership requirement, but at least the bill of lading is definitely a contract that shows also ownership of the goods. Okay, then commercial invoice, of course, we all know about commercial invoice, which is similar to what we use here, but there are certain elements that customs includes on the commercial invoice, customs commercial invoice. Entry for immediate delivery, these are documents that you have to file when entering goods into the US. Packing list, which is very, very important for customs, have to be detailed according to customs, because that's what they see. Customs doesn't see physically your product unless they suspect something that they want to see it. Usually the packing list is what they use to clear customs. You can even imagine how many containers enter into the United States, like 24 million containers or so a year. It's very hard to kind of check every container. In every container, there might be boxes. Within that box, there might be also small boxes and so on and so on. So basically, they use their technology part of it, but the main thing that they look at is the packing list. Packing list have to be according to customs requirements. And also the other government agencies like FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, FCC, Federal Communication Commission, DOA, Department of Agriculture, and so forth, that you have to meet. Okay, quickly as to entering a product into the US, who can make entry? Owner of the goods, purchaser of goods, and custom house brokers, which I mentioned that before, and then an individual with a power of attorney. You have to remember that you have to give a power of attorney to the freight forwarder for exporting so that they can work on your behalf. You have to also give a power of attorney to customs house brokers so that they can work on your behalf. Without that, then they cannot represent you. Usually they have a form that you have to sign for them to help you. Okay, one key area about customs clearance that I want to talk about is the value determines, as to what kind of entry that you are doing. If the value of the goods, okay, that you are entering is less than $800, there is no duty for the product. However, if the product is less than $800, it's an agricultural product, and then you have to comply with the Department of Agriculture, but you don't pay any tariff, tax, or duty. Okay. So for general commodities, agricultural products, furnitures, and so on, if it's less than $800, no duty paid. Okay. There's some restrictions for licensed goods, as I said, or certain agricultural products. Now, that is Section 301. They call it de minimis. Second one is informal entry. Informal entry is when the value of the goods exceeds $801 up to $2,500. For this, you're going to pay duty. You're going to pay tax. If it's more than $800, then you have to expect to pay tax. And then also on that, customs will process the documents. Okay, it's not as the same as that what do we call a formal entry. Customs will help you on that, as far as the forms are concerned, which sometimes could be overwhelming, but certainly certain documents have to be presented if the product is in certain categories, whether it's licensed goods or Department of Agriculture or alcoholic beverage. Formal entry, the last one, is for products exceeding $2,501 and higher. Okay, $2,501 and higher. For that, you have to pay duty. That applies to general commodities. If it's not a general commodity, agricultural product, for example, then you have to obtain a license and so on. In addition to paying duty on this one, you have to also pay the merchandise processing fee, which is a minimum of $25. And depending if your shipment is $100,000 or more, you might pay more than, of course, than $25. But it all depends on the value of the product. And all restrictions also apply for this. I think we are getting close to the end. I do have some slides at the end for references, for further information. And I think you, as far as customs brokers is concerned, as far as also Incoterms are concerned, there are information also on at the end towards the slides. So I'm going to stop it. And if we have any questions, maybe we can move on to the questions. And you will see the slides, a little bit more information when you receive it. Gustavo?
Thank you, Dr. Tekle.
Thank you, everybody.